Influence is a powerful but often misunderstood concept. I'm Laura Cox Kaplan. I created She Said podcast to pick up right where influence greats like Dale Carnegie left off, but with a more direct focus on what influence means for women, how we can deepen our understanding of the concept, and how we can use our influence to get more of what we want. Each week, we tackle a different dimension related to influence, often with input from incredible guests. We talk about everything from career and life pivots to brand building, entrepreneurship, impact investing, and so much more. Friend, whatever your path, I think you'll find lots to love in this content. Most of all, I'm really glad you're here. Hey, friend, welcome to episode 270. We have been talking a lot about change this season, how to navigate change, how to plan for it, or at least how we can be as prepared as possible, even when we obviously don't know what's coming. Now, I realize that that may sound a bit impossible, but when it comes to your career, it can be extremely helpful to have at least done some important maintenance on things like your personal brand and your skills checklist so that you aren't completely starting from scratch when something happens. Even with the best of plans, that does not make change easy, but it can give you a running start in order to help you bounce back just a little bit faster. Now, if you've missed my series of toolkit episodes this season, go back and check them out. I'll have a few more coming over the next several weeks and months, but I think that you'll find a lot of helpful food for thought. Most of all, I would love to hear if you're actually finding them useful, so be sure to let me know. Last week's conversation with Dr. Esther Sternberg gave us some great perspective on how we can proactively think about our health and wellness and in ways that actually help us stay healthy and that help us bounce back faster from illness. Her 7-part integrated approach puts a premium on creating more resilience by actually taking a thoughtful look at, of all things, your surroundings and how you've structured your workspace to really maximize the 7 parts of integrated health. As we face change that comes with age, and this is true whatever stage that you happen to be in, that proactive approach that she recommends really can help put you in a better place for weathering what's ahead. But in thinking about and really navigating change, this week's conversation will provide another dimension or give you sort of another scenario, if you will. What if your business partner, who also happened to be your best friend, passed away suddenly? For this week's guest, it was not only personally devastating, but it also meant that she would have to navigate through change in the leadership of the business that she had co-founded. Elyce Arons is the CEO and co-founder of luxury fashion and accessory brand Frances Valentine. Elyce co-founded that company along with her best friend, the late Kate Spade, and Kate's husband, Andy Spade. They created Frances Valentine after the group had a very successful run in co-creating and ultimately selling the Kate Spade Company to Neiman Marcus back in 2006. In my conversation today with Elyce, you'll hear how she navigated that very difficult transition after losing Kate and how she's gone on to really fulfill the dream that she and Kate had envisioned. In our conversation, Elyce also draws on her 35-year track record in fashion to talk about the Frances Valentine brand, sustainability in the industry, catalogs, retail stores, serving and thinking about her core customer, advice that I think is relevant whatever your business happens to be, and also some great advice for creating and managing effective partnerships. Elyce also talks about hitting the pause button on her career and actually taking an 8-year break to invest more fully in her family and some other interest. I think you're really going to love that dimension. I think you'll love the whole conversation, but especially that dimension. Friend Elyce is incredibly thoughtful and wonderful, and I think you'll love getting to know her and hearing her incredible story. Here is episode 270 with Elyce Arons. Elyce, welcome to She Said, She Said.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, I'm delighted to have you, and I am so delighted to meet you. I have been a fan of yours and a fan of Frances Valentine's and Kate Spade before that. So let's jump in. For anyone listening who might not be familiar, let's talk about what is Frances Valentine.
Frances Valentine is an American brand. We make apparel, shoes, handbags, and jewelry. And it's really based on a lot of vintage pieces we've collected over the years. So every piece tells a story. We use really bold colors and vintage prints to make our apparel. And there's really nothing else out there like Frances Valentine. So it's super unique, and I think it helps women create their own individual style.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it is one of my favorites because it is so unique, and you can really, find these very special pieces that you can then, I feel like, incorporate into your wardrobe and really work them, for a dressier occasion or a more sort of casual occasion. Throw them on with jeans for a little, sort of kick, if you will.
Yes.
So it's a lot of fun. But I would love for you to talk about to kind of how Frances Valentine came to be, because this was not your first iteration. In fact,
No.
maybe let's talk about your career journey and how you got here.
Okay, great. I'll try and make the very long story short, but it's hard. um, so I grew up on a farm in Kansas. I went to University of Kansas. I met my best friend for life at KU named Katie Brosnahan. Um, we graduated from college. I ended up moving to New York, and she came to stay with me and ended up just staying here. We both ended up working in the fashion business.
Mhm.
We had been journalism majors in college, inspired by Mary Tyler Moore
Love it.
and her show, being a journalist in a kind of a man's world. And we both ended up in the fashion business, she at Mademoiselle and I in various marketing jobs for different fashion companies. And during college, we'd always wanted to have a business together. We hadn't defined what that
Mhm.
was, but it was actually her husband, Andy Spade, who came up with the idea for a handbag company. So we started in 1993. She designed the handbags, and I went to the Javits show with her, and we would sell them, and just all of a sudden it blew up. We were broke and working really hard for years and years, but it really paid off in the end. And I think it was right place, right time, right product.
Yeah.
They were super chic, American styled handbags that were material. The first, at least the first year and several first seasons, we did not use leather for the first couple of years,
Hmm.
and mostly because we couldn't afford it.
Yeah, but you were kind of ahead of your time, right? There's a lot of this is very trendy not to use leather now.
Yes, but Katie had been an accessories editor for so long that she knew what the market was missing
Mm.
and really had an idea of what she wanted to do.
Mhm.
And it was brilliant. It was really, really amazing. Things took off for us. She was nominated and deservedly won the CFDA award for the best new fashion designer in the mid 90s. We had another partner, Pamela Bell, who had joined us right at the beginning as well. So there were four of us doing this, and it was such an exciting time. It was wonderful. Cut to, we had a lot of different companies looking to buy Kate Spade in, I guess, the mid 90s, 98, 99. And we settled on a partner in Neiman Marcus because they were such a prestigious department store. And we thought, what better partner could we possibly have? We do such a great business with them. They know what they're doing. So we partnered with them. They bought majority stock of the company. And 7 years later, after we added product categories and tons of stores and had a huge international business, and this was all so much fun and so much work, and best time of life. It was like Camelot. It was really great. We sold it to them
Mm.
completely in 2006. At that point, we were sort of like, yay, we never have to work again. This is going to be the best time in our lives. And we'd all gotten married and had children. So our kids were really little. So it was perfect timing for us. And we were so excited at that time. But what I didn't realize was that my identity was so wrapped up in owning a business and being, part of this phenomenon. And so when I dropped my kids off at school several months after we'd stopped working, I didn't have a place to go. I didn't have an office to go to. No one was waiting for me.
Mhm.
And I kind of felt an emptiness. So Katie and I both felt that way. We each got involved in our children's schools, and I became, PA president and board chair, and raised money for the school and hosted events, et cetera. And that was for about 7 years.
Wow.
During that time, yes, it was exciting, and it was a completely different experience.
Uh-huh.
I had to listen to other voices and really take their opinions into account and be calm and patient. And so it was a very different experience working at a not-for-profit. But I learned so much, and I think it's really helped me at Frances Valentine too. But cut to around 2013, 2014, we were out to dinner, and Katie and I decided we were going to get back into business. Pamela and Andy had both had their own businesses by that point. But they encouraged us to start this new one. So, of course, we started with handbags and shoes because those were Katie's forte and really her favorite things. And we had our issues at the beginning. We really thought we knew everything. We got all the experience. What could go wrong? And what the difference was, the landscape had really changed. E-commerce wasn't really too much of a thing when we sold Kate Spade. We had an e-commerce business, but it was one person working on it.
Right.
Um, Social media didn't exist yet.
Yeah.
And so by the time we launched Frances Valentine in 2016, influencers had replaced editors, and we had known all the editors. We're like, oh, we'll know them forever.
Yeah.
They're all gone,
Uh-huh.
and there is a whole new crop, and influencers were a whole different thing. And our business was really dependent on e-commerce instead of wholesale, because wholesale had really sort of diminished by that point. So we had a lot to learn, and we were just feeling like we were getting going in 2017, kind of got everything lined out. We could do this together. And then we lost Katie in 2018, which was very difficult personally and challenging. But we have a great team here at Frances Valentine, all women, fantastic group of people. And I felt like I needed to be strong for Katie's family, for the business, for the employees here. So we decided to keep going and muscle through. And so we thought, what can we do? And we created 2 different apparel pieces. Katie and I had both been huge vintage shoppers all the way from our teens all the way through, and together we were always shopping vintage. She wore 2 pieces always when we were on our vacations together. One was this beautiful embroidered caftan, and another was a hand embroidered floral sweater. And she wore those all the time. We thought, let's remake those as a tribute to her. So we did that. Of course, they sold out immediately, and then they sold out again and again and again. And people started asking us for all of the vintage pieces that we were using to style our ad campaigns. And I was like, oh, we'll never do pants. We'll never do this. We'll never do. Cut to now.
Right. You do
We
everything.
do everything. We have a full apparel collection, and it is about over 60% of our business. We still have an incredible footwear and handbag business, but apparel has really, taken the lead. And I think Katie would be really happy about that. I think even though it wasn't her thing, I think she would love what we're doing today.
Yeah.
And now we have, I'm taking a long, long time to answer your
No, I
first
love it. I
question.
love it. I love it.
But we just opened our 9th store. So we've got stores sort of across the United States, mostly on the East Coast and the South. And we're so excited. We just opened our 9th store. We have a growing wholesale business where we opened Saks and Neiman's and Nordstrom. So we're doing a lot of business in department stores, but we have a whole new group of specialty stores that we're selling to across the United States, and then our e-commerce business.
Mm.
And all three are growing. We're omni-channel, so each of those channels kind of relies on each other for information and data and really growth.
Mhm.
But it's been really, truly incredible, and we're excited about the future.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Okay, I have lots of questions. And one is because I think it will really resonate with this audience. We talk about change and the things that happen in our lives that you can't possibly predict. I mean, that's obviously why it's so difficult to navigate change. But losing someone close to you, losing a partner, whether it's a business partner or a partner who you're married to or in some other capacity, it's really incredibly difficult. That goes without saying. I would love for you to share maybe some advice for maybe advice for others who might face something similar, how you get through that, how you kind of reorient your focus to shift so that you're honoring that partner, but you're also, recognizing this change and this evolution that has to occur.
Well, I think everyone's different and everyone handles grief and loss very differently.
Mm,
So I'm reluctant to give advice to anybody, but I'll tell you how I handled it.
yeah.
And sometimes I think maybe did it the completely wrong way. Um, I just kept going.
Mm,
The team here, we just, work has become everything. And I just threw myself into coming in every day, even through COVID.
mm,
We were here working, and um, perhaps that's kept me from really thinking about the loss so much.
mhm.
But I also feel like Katie is in everything I do here. So it feels like we're still together. And
Yeah.
when I'm here, I'm not missing her phone calls all the time, because I'll tell you, when something funny happens or I want to play a practical joke on somebody, I just want to call her.
Mm,
And it's the thing I miss the most.
yeah.
But I do feel like her presence is here.
Mm.
And so for me, I'm such a stay busy person anyway, that work filling the void of that personal relationship is how I did it.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's right for everyone, but
I love that you said that, and I love that you're willing to share it because I think you're right. It is so incredibly personal, but it's an unfortunate fact of life. I mean, and it's a horrible, horrible thing to have to deal with. But I'm so grateful that you're willing to share your perspective and your journey for others who might experience something similar. God forbid. I'd also love for you to talk about, you and Kate knew each other all the way back to college. You were sorority sisters. I'm happy to say we're all fellow Chi Omegas, which
well,
is
Katie
really.
was a
Oh,
Kappa.
she was
I
a
have
Kappa.
to,
Okay, I stand
Katie was a
corrected.
Kappa, but you and I are Chi
We are
Omegas.
Chi Omegas, yes. But you knew her for a long time. You knew her in college. You guys stayed friends. Let's talk about navigating a partnership, a business relationship that evolves from a friendship and protecting the friendship while you become business partners. Maybe talk a little bit about advice for that because I think that can be kind of tricky.
It's very tricky. I really think in most cases it's very tricky.
Mm,
I think we were lucky. And part of that is, Andy Spade's one of my best friends too.
mm.
So there were four of us, and two of those was a husband and wife team. So that makes it even more
Oh, yeah.
complicated. Which I don't think I would want to do it, work with my husband, because then you're 24/7. You're
Right.
talking about the business 24/7. I think with us, I think we were always together all the time. Like we literally spent all of our social time together
Wow.
too, and our family time together. And I think, a big part of that is when you come from the same place, and it's not like we were the same people. We were very different people, but we all brought something to the table, but we shared the same values and we shared the same goals. And if it was a matter of how to reach those goals, we might have had different, opinions about how to get there, but they were never really that divergent from one another. Andy always, would turn something on its head to come to a solution.
Mm.
And I think, what are you thinking? This is crazy. And yet he was brilliant. His ideas were just amazing. So it was a matter of just keeping an open mind with any new ideas that came about from one of my partners. But honestly, I think the secret for us was we were so close. We respected each other a great deal. We trusted each other implicitly. And, you know, I never would have let anything come in the way of our friendship.
Mm.
I think I would have walked away from the business if that's what it took. And yet we never came to blows that way. We never really had any issues. Yes, we argued and we'd fight, and had heated discussions. And there was some food throwing at one point.
Now there's a
But
story I'd like to hear.
it's a good one. I wasn't the one either receiving or throwing, but I was so shocked. Um, but those are healthy, and you're going to argue. You're going to get mad at each other. And you might not talk for a couple of days,
Mm.
but those are healthy discussions.
Mhm.
And but I think it's tricky to find the right partner.
Yeah.
It's really, you just never know how it's going to work out. Some end up great with someone you hardly know,
Mhm.
and some of the best relationships end. And I think it's just sort of, I don't think there's any recipe for it. I think it's a roll of the dice.
Yeah. Is your advice for others who might enter into a partnership with a friend or with a spouse potentially to have partnership agreements in place? Or maybe what's your best advice on how to structure this so that you're at least planning for the possibility that something may or may not work out?
I think it's really important. And I think once you start working together after a couple of months, you kind of know each other a
Mhm.
little bit, you know what your priorities and your goals are, but really you have to have the same shared goal at the beginning. Whether it's making the world a more beautiful place, or whether it's making a lot of money.
Mm.
What are your priorities?
Mhm.
And put them in order and really understand. And you both have to believe that those are the priorities to make it work. But I do think partnership agreements are really important. We all had an understanding when we started what our partnership was going to be, but it took us 2 years to
Mm.
get the partnership agreement done.
Mhm.
And that was, out of just sheer, we don't have the time or money to, get with the lawyers, all four of us together and get it done.
Yeah.
But it's critical that that happens, because in the end, 10, 20 years later, you're going to rely on that document at one point or another, even if whether you're not talking to each other or whether you're, each with each other all the time, that document really matters.
Yeah. I love that. I think that's such great advice for anybody who's entering into a business type relationship to really think about that. And to your point, it can be hard to press the pause button when you're so busy and you're producing and you're creating, and what could possibly go wrong. You just never know, right? I mean, that's the whole thing. So let's pivot a bit and talk about creativity. You are surrounded by color and really this whole notion of dopamine dressing and dressing in ways that make you feel good. I really, really love the whole vibe, and I know that your entire community does as well. But talk about, Elyce, where that inspiration comes from for you in developing new products and colors and designs, all this great stuff.
Well, I am of the philosophy that most of us have the opportunity when we wake up in the morning to determine how we're going to feel for the day. And if I get up and decide to put on a pink velvet suit, that is going to make me feel like $1,000,000 all day. I'm going to feel happy and bright and feel good about myself. I'm not saying everybody has to do that, but wearing color really does change your mood. It boosts the feelings you have. And especially when you get like 10 compliments from people on what you're
Mhm.
wearing that day, it just makes you feel so good all day. I mean, who
Right.
doesn't want that? And I get the wearing black. It's a very New York thing. And it's also easy, when you're traveling to, throw in 3 pieces of black just to be able to wear all the time. I totally get it. But everybody needs a splash of color, some print, some color, because it really does. It makes you stand out and lets you feel like it's your own
Mhm.
personal style that's speaking. And I think that's important. And I think it gives women confidence about how they feel about themselves. But my first thing is, really, when you wake up in the morning, you get to decide how you're going to
Mm.
feel for the rest of the day. And again, most people. So that's kind of where it all starts. And I think people don't realize how much it changes their day and their mood when they're actually dressing. It's just sort of like one of those, oh my God, what am I going to wear today? I've got this and this and this. And they just reach for the most basic, easy thing to put together. They're like, well, this skirt and this top and this jacket looks fine together. But, fine isn't going to make your day. Great is
Yeah.
going to make your day. And color is going to make your day. Just make you feel wonderful.
Yeah. I would love for you to talk about, as I'm sitting here thinking about this, and how, as we age, as we change and evolve in our lives and careers, we take on different identities, and there's a different, costume, if you will, that's associated with these different roles. Maybe if you could talk about advice for as you see your customer sort of go from her 20s to her 30s to her 40s to her 50s, and what you see changing, and maybe advice for keeping it fresh and not kind of
Mhm.
falling into a rut, which I think can be such an easy thing to do.
Yeah. I think it's so funny because when we started Kate Spade, we were 30. When we started Frances Valentine, we were 50. And we never ever used the word grown up, but we really were. We were different people in different stages of our lives. And if I remember, in my 30s, I would wear anything. Your legs still look great. Or then a lot of women still have great looking legs. I do not after after 20 more years. Um, but uh, there's just a feeling you get of, gosh, I guess it was probably like 45. I was sort of like, I shouldn't wear those skirts that short anymore. It was just a sense about my age that I felt inappropriate in certain
Mm.
things. Just myself. Other people can get away with a lot, a lot. I cannot. But you know, when we started making apparel at Frances Valentine, we really wanted to listen to women our age in their, 40s, 50s, and 60s about what they wanted. And they
Mhm.
told us, they would write in and tell us everything. I like to have sleeves on everything these days. My arms aren't what they used to be. And I also get cold easily. So I want a really lightweight sleeve. I want pockets in every possible thing I can have
Amen.
pockets in. So we put pockets in like 95% of what we
Uh-huh.
make. Um, we do a lot of higher necklines because a lot of people like their necks covered. So there are so many little things that we have added to our products, and not every single product, but it really matters to our
Mm.
customers. And it's the piece you reach for that's the most comfortable favorite thing in your closet. And we want that to be Frances Valentine. We want to have all of those qualities that makes you pick that piece out to wear over and over again. Um, and so I feel like that's part of what really differentiates our product. Once somebody buys our apparel or shoes or bags, um, and they have to like the design at the beginning. And the design is, one thing we think a lot about. We want these pieces to be classic favorite pieces that you're going to have in your closet the rest of your life, not something just for this season where it's trendy and it goes out. We want this piece. We want your daughter to want this piece. We want your granddaughter to want this piece. And I mean, I've got pieces that my grandmother had in her closet, and I couldn't wait to get them because they were just cool, bright, old dresses from Hawaii, and I loved them.
That's amazing.
But it's just those pieces that can be passed down generation after generation, and that will stay in your closet that you want to have forever.
I love that. I love everything about that. I'd love for you to talk a little bit about some of the trends that we're seeing in the fashion industry. There's a real focus, I think, an important one on sustainability. Maybe talk a little bit about how you guys are thinking about that and any other trends in the industry that you're maybe really excited about.
I think sustainability is hugely important, and I'm so happy that the fashion industry has really, put it front and center. And a lot of larger companies have really created, they've created whole divisions within their companies to focus on it. I think it's fantastic. They have to lead the charge because when sustainable fabrics have come around, when these resale platforms have come around, a lot of that is only accessible to larger businesses. And today, just when I go to a fabric show, I'm thrilled to be able to find more accessible, sustainable materials or recycled materials. We wouldn't have seen that 5 years ago for a company like us. I mean, yes, Michael Kors or Ralph Lauren or one of the larger companies can afford to buy them, and they get much better deals on their fabric because they're buying so much in bulk. Smaller companies haven't been able to afford it until more recently. And it's great because now so many of our bags, shoes, or apparel are made out of sustainable materials. We don't even talk about it. We don't need to talk about it. We can feel good about ourselves for utilizing those materials. Some of the other things that have come about in the last few years, we give 25 cents for every single order, either through our stores or through e-commerce, to a company called Clean Hub. And they basically pull plastics out of the ocean. And I think we've contributed to, 30,000 pounds of plastic being removed from the ocean, also providing jobs for women
Mm.
in other countries. They provide jobs for them. And it's really fantastic. It's such a great organization. So we've joined Clean Hub. We moved from, all of our own packages being plastic to cornstarch bags. There's a lot of little things. They're expensive for a small company to do, but it was really one of those things that we felt was important. So we'll continue to work on more sustainable, products as we are
Mhm.
able to. And I think it's an excellent thing that the whole fashion industry is doing.
Yeah.
And I,
I mean, your whole, the whole focus of your brand to begin with is about pieces that hope that your customer will keep year after
Mhm.
year and that she will incorporate into her wardrobe and wear them in all different ways. I mean, we talked about at the beginning of the conversation, using your sequin jacket that you would wear for a holiday party. You can also put it on with jeans and dress it down and dress it up, and sort of using these pieces in ways that maybe historically we might not have been inclined to do. And I think that feels like that's such a piece of at least your own sustainability story as it relates to your product. Not that you're not doing new things every year, of course you are,
Mhm.
but the ability to sort of incorporate those into what you have in your closet, I think is a beautiful thing as well.
Exactly. It's like buy less, but buy really good things. Things that you'll keep for a long time. This jacket, for instance, I'm wearing a houndstooth jacket. It's wool from Abraham Moon in England. I'm going to have this jacket the rest of my life. I love
Yeah.
this jacket. And it's just one of those pieces. I'm sure my daughters will steal it and I won't have it the rest of my life. But it's just, it's one of those things. We also, one along those lines, we tend to make things in small batches
Mhm.
so that we don't have a lot of inventory left over. And some of our really good customers don't like that so much because we tend to run out of things quickly. But um, it's better to have less than have too much, I think.
Yeah, yeah. You guys also put, I mean, kind of a premium, I think, on catalogs. Catalogs are
Mhm.
something that I think, if they're done really well, they're still kind of magical, like what you're doing. But maybe talk about the thought process behind why catalogs. It to me, it feels like sort of an extension of a little bit of the retro and timelessness of your brand. So, I mean, to me, it speaks to me because it's so consistent with your brand. But I'd love to know kind of how you think about it and why it makes sense.
It's so funny because our team really wanted to do it, and I was like, "Gosh, isn't that really old fashioned? Aren't catalogs like a thing of the past? Nobody's doing them anymore." So this was before COVID. We had actually decided to do a catalog, and I caved and gave in. I was like, "Okay, let's try it. Let's great." Because one thing that I knew was that our creative really lends itself to print, and there were so few fashion magazines
Hmm.
out there, and so just putting our images into it almost felt like a fashion magazine. And I think a lot of our customers view it that way and love to get them. We have people calling us and say, "I haven't gotten my February catalog yet." And I was like, it's coming. Because they get excited about getting them. It's like getting, your favorite fashion magazine, every couple months. But the catalog was really great for us. It was just fortuitous that we had decided before COVID to do our first one. And it landed in home in May of 2020 when everybody was at home. And I think we had such happy, bright, beautiful pieces. And as I recall, we had a lot of caftans and tunics in that catalog. And I think it gave people hope that there was light at the end of the tunnel. that they were going to buy this yellow caftan with beautiful embroidery all over it for the party that was going to happen 6 months from now or 3 months from now. And there was going to be a place to go and we were going to have fun again. And so I think it really gave a lot of people hope during a very sad period.
Yeah. Yeah,
And that
absolutely.
was the beginning. And then we started doing them, seasonally.
Yeah. I'm curious if you think that's kind of the trend, given that, magazines it's a very different industry. I know you sort of grew up in that space, but do you think there's an opportunity potentially to create more editorial content through a catalog than there might have been an appetite for previously?
I think so, and I think there are so many businesses today utilizing catalogs. I think it's grown enormously. I mean, I don't know about the stack you get at your home, but I get them,
Oh, yeah.
monthly. I get stacks and stacks of catalogs now, and so I think that because of COVID, that business really took off and grew. Despite the paper shortages and the postage increases, et cetera, I think it's been a great vehicle for a lot of different companies.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe any final pieces of advice because of your really interesting entrepreneurial pathway, the fact that you were able and willing to take a break, really at the height of your career, thinking about your life in stages, perhaps, maybe advice for anyone listening who might be contemplating a break, how to stay in the game potentially if you want to preserve your ability to jump back in at some point.
Well, it's funny. I'm a list maker and I make lists every day, all the time. um, and I wish I would have made a list when we stopped working because I learned how to play tennis. I took cooking classes. It took me a while to get to these places. I had a couple of months of like, oh my God, what am I going to do with what am I doing with myself? So I wish I would have made a list of all these things I wanted to accomplish because we were not working, at either Kate Spade or Frances Valentine for about 8 years. Now I was working. I was working a lot at our school and doing a lot of things, but there were some personal things I wish I had done, and I wish. I know this sounds silly, but it's just a thing of mine. I've always wanted to take an electrical class and a plumbing class at a trade school
No
because
kidding.
I can't I can't stand having to call a man to fix things and simple things around your house to be able to repair something or know what to do in a situation. So I never did those things and I wish I would have. I also would have liked to have taken a business class at one of the universities in New York City. There's so many. And really maybe taken some graduate courses in business. Even though I've been an entrepreneur twice, there are so many things that I don't have a deep
Mm.
understanding of that I should and I'd like to. So I think the constant learning, is important. But again, they weren't on my list, so I didn't do them. But tennis was on my list, and cooking classes were on my list, and volunteering at school. So I think a list of some things that you really want to do, and just interesting personal things. Go to museums every
Mhm.
day. Go to really fill your life with some things that you wouldn't normally do.
I love that. And one of the things that you said that really resonates with me, because this was an 8-year period and it can be really hard to kind of get into a break and to own a new identity. I mean, you didn't know that there was going to be Frances Valentine on the back end of this break that you were taking, right? And
Right.
it's can be, we can have a tendency to get in our own heads about, okay, who am I? What am I? What am I supposed to be doing? You start to spiral. Maybe that's just me. I don't think so. We have a lot of conversations about this on this podcast. But maybe talk about how you dealt with that piece if you did at all.
Gosh, at first, when we sold Kate Spade, we were joyful. And I don't think anybody wakes up in the morning and says, I can't wait to go to work today most of the time. Most people probably don't. Because for me, it's not necessarily a passion, it's what you're good at. And after Kate Spade, I really thought I would enjoy not working.
Mm.
And I found during that long period of time, it goes by so fast if you don't have things going on. And actually things you can check off and say, I accomplished that, I accomplished that, I accomplished something I always wanted to do, and I accomplished those things, which I think is nice. If you're just doing the same thing every day, time goes by so fast, and you can't. For me, I can't remember particular years what I did in those years. I'm sort of like, what happened then? But and in Frances Valentine, I got really excited to get started working
Mm.
again. A lot of it was a social interaction in the
Mhm.
office with other people, because as a mother at home, you're with your kids a lot, and there's not a lot of adult interaction, and I miss that. Um, and so, I think there are surprises all along the way, and all the things I thought I knew. And a lot of experience does pay off, and it does help you get through things. But it's just being open to the newness of every situation. I had, I still, had to have someone help me try and get on this podcast with you. There's a lot I don't know about my computer and technology. I think it's just being open to things you don't know too.
I love that, and I have loved this conversation. I'm so grateful that you were willing to spend a little time with us today, and really loved getting to know you.
Well, thank you for having me.
Hey friend, if you happen to be in the DC metro area, be sure to check out the newest Frances Valentine store that has just opened in Alexandria, Virginia. It is gorgeous. In the meantime, I hope you found some value and some inspiration in this week's conversation. And as always, I would love to hear from you. Join me on Instagram or LinkedIn, or if you really loved the episode and what I'm doing here at She Said podcast, please consider sharing a review on iTunes or wherever you happen to be listening. Those reviews, my friend, are super helpful and would be greatly appreciated. For now, though, have a great rest of your week, and I'll talk to you again real soon. And remember, She Said podcast is a weekly production of She Said Media.